Hi, I'm Lori. This is GLP One Journey in Review. Today we're doing a video in my interview series where we talk to people about their weight loss journey. Today we have with us Keely, who was on here before, and we're going to get an update on her progress. Uh, I am not a healthcare provider. My guest is not a healthcare provider. We're talking about what works for us. I want to remind everybody that all of Keely's information is going to be in the description. So if you find any of this useful, hit that like, hit that share, hit that subscribe, hit that hype button. When this is over, hop on over to Keely's channel and do the same. All that being said, if you're planning on going on a weight loss journey, I strongly advise that you seek your healthcare provider. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how it's going, Keely?
Yeah, so obviously the last time I was on your channel, Laurie, I was in the midst of my weight loss journey with Mounjaro,
Mhm.
and I can't remember at that point how much I'd lost, but it was going really well. And I hit maintenance towards the end of October, beginning of November of last year, and had decided that I was probably going to see how I would fare without using Mounjaro.
Mhm.
Um, the price increase in the UK sort of, and my, so the price increase and my resilience to the medication being the two factors, because I was noticing that unlike some people who are able to stay on a lower dose, I was having to constantly increase. And even though I only got to 7.5, I think had I not lost the weight as quickly, I probably would have gone up to 15 milligrams quite quickly, which is obviously the highest dose of Mounjaro.
Mhm.
So I began to titrate down in November and stopped using. So I took my last jab on Christmas Day of 2025. So yeah, 3 months in, it's been interesting.
So how's it going?
So I've managed to keep the weight off. I've actually continued to lose weight, which is not an active. So I'm not on a weight loss journey at this point. I'm just trying to maintain, but
Mhm.
I suppose I naturally eat. I mean, I still eat higher calories some days. So there'll be days when I eat well over 2,000 calories, and then there's days when I'm not doing as much exercise, so I eat a lot less. But I eat much healthier now, and I'm doing a lot of exercise. So the body fluctuates, but yeah, I've continued to lose weight. So I'm now quite significantly under what I'd set as my target weight, but and I'm not getting worried about that because I'm still within a healthy BMI. And
Mhm.
equally, I've never been a healthy weight as an adult. So I don't really know what my optimum weight really is. I'm just guessing as much as anything else.
Okay.
So I guess my body's just doing what it's doing, and we'll just, yeah, that's just what it's
H-
going to
How
do.
much how much weight have you lost in total?
9 pounds. So in total,
Mhm.
I don't actually know. So in I've got it written down, and I've just done a video that I'm uploading today where
Mhm.
I've put what my current weight is, but what I didn't do is work out how much in total I've lost.
Yeah.
So the last time I checked, I'd lost about 156 pounds in total. I think it's probably a little bit over that at this point. But I've lost well over half of my body weight and about nearing 11 stone now, which I don't know what that is in kilograms or pounds off the top of my head.
So you're in the maintenance now. You're still losing. How much have you lost on maintenance? Do you know
So
that?
in the last 3 months, so in the 3 months since I stopped using Mounjaro, I've lost about 9 pounds. But I mean, obviously that's just, so I weighed myself. I mean, I barely weigh myself anymore. And I mean, I think the fact that I can't remember how much I lost, and actually in the video that I've just done, I had to go back and refer to my weight because I genuinely
Mhm.
couldn't remember what it was. Um, but I used to weigh myself every single day. I'd have down to the gram what I weighed.
Mhm.
So that's sort of really significant within itself. But yeah, I think 9 pounds is what it said I'd worked out that I'd lost in total. But that's with fluctuations. Some days you're 2 pounds
Mhm.
up, some days you're 3 pounds down. It's hard to
Now,
tell really.
I know most people kind of feel that they're going to be on this medication for life, me being one of them, because just I think there were 2, 3 weeks that I didn't take the medication for whatever reason, and like I found the food noise coming back, and in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, I could see myself eventually going back to the way that I was, even though I do have better habits.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know if it's the food noise, exactly what it is. So how are you feeling not knowing that you're done with Mounjaro?
So, I mean,
Or
I
are you
think,
done with Mounjaro?
yeah, I mean, I think at the moment, it's obviously, I mean, and it differs week by week. So if anybody's watched the sort of update videos, there are weeks when it's really hard, and then there are weeks when it's not so hard. And I think, I mean, what I would say is what I wouldn't be prepared to do is go back to where I was. So if I get to a point in this journey and I just cannot manage it and I start to regain the weight and I can't, and it's just too much, I will just start using Mounjaro again. Because ultimately what I've gained in losing the weight is not worth. I can, I'm realistic in that I couldn't do this for 25 years. So if it wasn't for Mounjaro, I wouldn't be where I am now. So it would be
Mhm,
on some level quite naive of me to say, oh, well, that's it, I'm cured, I don't need it. Because, and I'm only 3 months in. So, but actually, I'm 3 months in not using Mounjaro, but as I was coming down the doses, the food noise and the hunger came back quite quickly. So when I got to 5 milligrams, I think by the second week, the hunger and the food noise were there. So it's been about 5 months that I've been managing that, and those things have become easier. I mean, I haven't had the food noise for months now, but I think it's the hunger and the wanting when I'm bored or when I'm frustrated or when I'm stressed, it's
mhm,
instantly my brain goes to food. And so it's working out, and that's, I have to actively work at that. So it's not like these 3 months have just been me doing nothing. It's been me actively working at, why do I want food? If I know that I'm eating, which I know that I am, why is it that I want something? Normally it's boredom. If I'm not got something to do, then I think about food and I think about eating. So it's just working that out for me. But yeah, I can't say that I'm ever done with it, because if it wasn't for Manjaro, I wouldn't be like this way, and I wouldn't have all of these positive things going on.
mhm. Now, for me, it's not so much the hunger, because true hunger, if I'm really hungry, a piece of grilled chicken or a piece of grilled salmon is fine. It's when, you know, no, I want those chips, or I'm bored. That's the part that I can't handle. The true hunger, everybody gets hungry.
Yeah.
We just don't notice it so much on the GLP-1 medications, but I mean that's normal. It's the cravings, the boredom eating, the binge eating, that type of thing that
Yeah.
worry me.
Yeah. I mean, and I, yeah, I agree. And I think coupled, but I've always been somebody that has quite an insatiable appetite. So even from and I think my emotional issues with food stemmed from experiencing neglect as a child. So we went long periods where food was not available. And if it was, it was scarce. So food was not a commodity. It was something that, oh my God, I've got food. I'm going to
Mhm,
eat and eat and eat until there's no food, because we don't know when we'll next have loads of it. So there's that element. But I think I've always, when I hit puberty, I just was hungry all of the time. And I still find that now. So even though I'm eating high fiber, high protein meals, and I eat 5 smaller meals throughout the day, which some days are well over 2,000 calories, I still feel physical symptoms of hunger. But I know that it isn't. So my stomach will rumble, or I feel hungry, and I know that I'm not going to starve if I don't eat, because I've eaten enough. So yeah, it's definitely, the hunger is a difficult one, because I just can't seem to eat enough. Even when I was eating 8,000 calories a day, I was still hungry. And I used to put that down to the fact that what I was eating wasn't proper food. It was just rubbish that you eat, and within an hour, and I think we've all done it, you have a McDonald's, and within an
mhm.
hour or two of having a McDonald's, you're hungry again, because it's not really doing much for you. So um yeah, for me, the hunger difficult, but when you've got the food noise or the emotional propensity to eat on top of it, that makes it almost unmanageable.
Now, what is your biggest challenge now that you're not on the Mounjaro as far as, keeping your maintenance, steady and so forth?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is thinking that I'm fixed. So it's because at this point it it feels like it's getting easier, but I know that if I become complacent, and it's like any addiction, like I definitely had a food addiction. So regardless of the root cause of that, like any addiction, it's not just the thing that
Mhm.
you're addicted to. There's a root cause behind that. And I worked in addiction services, and I definitely had a food addiction. And like in any addiction, if you become complacent, then you run the risk of falling back into bad habits. And I know that I the minute I stop actively working at these lifestyle changes, they'll creep back in. I know that they will, because have evidence that that's happened on this journey when I've not used Mounjaro. The minute I think, oh, I'll just have that packet of M&Ms, and I'll eat the whole packet of M&Ms, because I haven't eaten like this in a long time. And then you eat the packet of M&Ms and you think, well, that was just a treat. Well, I'll just write today off. And that very quickly becomes, well, I'll just restart on Monday. And then you're 7 pounds up, and Monday comes, but you're not quite feeling like you're ready to, stop binging or stop, whatever it is. And then 1 week becomes 2 weeks, and then suddenly you're 3 months down the line and you're 3 or 4 stone up. And I've done that so many times. So I think it's recognizing that I'm here because of Mounjaro. Yes, I've made lots of positive changes, and yes, I've done really well to get to this point, but ultimately I'm only here because I use this medication. So I just need to remind myself of that. And I think that's my biggest challenge, is just keeping that there, because if not, quite easily it will all unfold, I think.
Now, if it wasn't for the price of the Mounjaro, would you stay on a maintenance dose?
Um, no, I think so. I'd made the decision that, because what happened was, I began on the 2.5, and at that point the advice was, right, you go up after 4 weeks. So I was on the 2.5, it went quite well. Then I went after 4 weeks up to 5 milligrams, and within 8 weeks, well, no, by the time I got my second pen, and I only ever did the 4 doses. So by the time I got my second pen, I wasn't finding it was very effective. So then I went up to the 7.5. And by the time I hit maintenance, the 7.5 wasn't effective anymore. And my concern with that, the cost element came into it, but my concern with that was, when I get to, so I keep going like this, and then I have to go up to 15 milligrams, which is, there's nowhere to go after that. What happens when that no longer starts being effective? Because all you can really do is maybe take a break and then build back up. That might not be effective. That I've seen lots of people where they've attempted that and it's not made any difference. And then, or do you then start going, right, I'm going to do Wegovy, and then Wegovy does the same thing, or maybe it's not effective. So that was the main reason that I had made the decision to stop. And then on top of that, that's sort of the price increase, and thinking about where that might go. Like, could I afford potentially to have to do 15 milligrams every single month at a maintenance dose if it then stopped working? No. So whilst the price increase was a factor in that, it wasn't the overriding one.
Okay, so, I mean, you stopped the Mounjaro, obviously, um, and you're not sure if you're gonna go back. So, what is this, like a month by month evaluation of it?
I think yeah, I mean, I'm not putting a time scale on it necessarily. I think if I
Mhm.
just get to the point where I can't, the things that I'm doing now that are working stop being effective, and I can't, and I'm not managing. So, I'm eating a lot, I'm gaining weight back, and I'm unable to pull that back. I mean, I think there are days, a couple of weeks ago, I had a really awful week. There was a lot going on, and I wasn't really able to focus on the healthy stuff because it was just such a stressful time. And I really struggled that week, but I was able to pull it back when the things that were happening stopped, or lessened. if it gets to the point where I'm not able to pull it back, and that the cycle that I just said, where suddenly a bad day turns into a bad 3 months, and then you notice that
Hmm.
you're 2 stone or 28 pounds up, I think at that point I would probably say I need to start the medication again. Um, I think because of how stressful life can be and how I can be quite emotionally responsive at times, I think I'd have to give it longer than a few weeks to see if I would, to see if that was what was happening, to see if it was sort of the rot was really setting in.
So now that you're at a normal BMI, if you were to have to go back to it, let's say you gain 15, 20 pounds, whatever, how hard is it since you're still somewhat in a normal BMI?
Yeah. So there's been a really mixed response to that, and that was something that I did a video a few weeks ago, and one of the main questions that I've had, and that I've had myself, but also in response, has been, but could you even get, because obviously I've been very open about the fact that, yeah, I'm trying to do this without Mounjaro, but if I needed it again, I'd use it. But then the response was, but could you even get it again unless you went right up to an unhealthy BMI? So I sort of did a bit of digging to see, and
Mhm.
some prescribers will give you would give me Mounjaro at that point. I think my BMI was just under 21. They would prescribe it to me. Others were like, no, they put my sort of credentials in, and very quickly came back and said no. Others went off and came back with a decision 3 days later. So I think I could get it again, but I think it would probably mean having to look at changing my prescriber based on the information that I've got already. So my last prescriber I was quite happy with, but they were one of the ones that came back straight away and were like, no, you don't meet the criteria.
It kind of makes you wonder how all these famous people that are just getting it for the few extra
Yeah.
pounds, how they're getting it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, there was a really, so in the UK, we've got a TV channel called Channel 4, and there's a couple of documentaries that they did a few, so when the Ozempic sort of first hit the
Hmm.
headlines however many years ago, Channel 4 did a couple of documentaries on that to see how easily it was to get, and shockingly it's really really easy, and you don't have to be overweight, but I guess that's what comes with having fame and money, that you can
Mm.
get things.
Money
But I think
talks.
what, absolutely, yeah, and but I think what will happen probably in the UK is that all of the companies will eventually be forced into a position to offer a maintenance dose to people that don't have a BMI that's overweight, because otherwise I can't see how they're going to continue to make the same level of money.
Hmm.
Because I think it's about 1.6 million people in the UK use GLP-1 medication at the moment. That isn't going to continue, I wouldn't have thought, at that rate, and if it does, it will stop somewhere. So I think probably they'll all be forced into a position of offering a maintenance just to keep making money.
I know here in the US, like most of them do offer maintenance, and a lot of them, primary care physicians actually put in your original weight, showing that it is a disease of obesity, and they don't want you going back to that. And
Yeah.
that seems to be working at least through getting it privately. I don't know about on insurances.
So so obviously in the UK we have the NHS, and it's not impossible to get, but it's very much what they call a postcode lottery. So um, the postcode obviously being relevant,
Mhm.
the equivalent to a zip code. So if you live in one area, you are more likely to get it on the NHS than if you had exactly the same criteria as a person, but you live in a different area. And they may, even, it's quite hard to get it. You have to have a certain BMI, you have to have 4 or 5 underlying health conditions, specific ones. And yeah, that you could have all of those, but if you live in the wrong place, you won't have access to it, or you might not have any of those, and the NHS might give it to you. So it I think predominantly, I don't know what the statistics are, I don't know how many people use it via the NHS, but I only know of a couple, and they're people that post on YouTube. I don't know of anybody personally that gets it.
Now, knowing everything that you know now, at this point in your journey, if you were to go back to right when you were about to start, what would you do differently?
I would, yeah, I would have started weight training a lot earlier. I think I left that quite late in the journey for a few reasons, and I would have adapted my diet to focus on fiber and protein a lot earlier as well. I would have done those things straight away. They're my biggest regrets, because I think with the fiber and the protein, I could have probably avoided some of the side effects that were quite difficult later on in my journey. So, for example, the hair loss.
Mhm.
But yeah, other than that, I don't really think there is anything that outside of those three things.
You mentioned hair loss. Were there any other side effects that you had?
So I had sort of quite generic side effects. I sort of had a headache for a couple of days. I freezing cold. I used to get dizzy quite a lot, and that was throughout the journey, even when I began to titrate down. And after I'd stopped, I was still experiencing dizziness. I know that's a really common one. Um, Peaks in energy, and then I'd have times of like real exhaustion. So when I first started taking Mounjaro, I had loads of energy, which was brilliant. And then further on, I started to notice that I had the opposite. I had no energy whatsoever. Um, a funny taste. Things tasted. I think we might have talked about that in the
Mhm.
last interview. That some things. So if I ate something salty, it would be magnified. It would taste too salty. And then if I ate something sweet, it would taste really, really sweet. Funnily enough, for some foods, that's continued. Um, but yeah, I think I can't think of constipation, but just very generic ones. But the hair loss I really struggled with. The hair shedding was quite extreme at one point, and that was another factor in why I decided that I wanted to sort of come down the doses and see if I could do it without.
And how did you tackle these side effects?
So diet and exercise, I think, particularly in relation to the headache, it didn't matter how hydrated I was. I had this really what felt like a hormonal headache. So very the exact same headache I would get on the first couple of days of my period or
Mhm.
before. And nothing really seemed to do much about that. I could take pain medication, but nothing would make it not happen. In terms of the all the other side effects, really, it was making sure that I was eating enough and that I was eating the right balance of protein. And I definitely wasn't at the start of my journey. Probably quite a way in, actually, wasn't eating anywhere near enough protein or fiber, but definitely increasing and adapting my diet meant that a lot of those side effects reduced.
So now that you're not on the Mounjaro, like, are these side effects going away? Do you still have them?
Um, so I'm still cold all the time, but I mean
Mhm.
it's cold here anyway. But equally, I recognise that I've every other year I've had loads of weight on me, so I don't know so much that that's a Manjaro side effect as it's just a case of I've lost weight and now that weight's not there to keep me warm. The taste thing is still there a little bit. So, for example, if I eat like some crisps and they're particularly salty, I can't finish them because they're just it's overwhelming. And I used to love crisps, so that was never an issue before. Yeah, no, everything else, I think the hair shedding, because it was so awful when it happened, I am acutely aware. So if I brush my hair now, I'm like, oh, and literally the other day I did it for a video that's coming up. I counted. So they say 50 to 100 hairs loss a day is normal.
Mhm.
And I assume that there's sort of in and outside for, it might go over for some people. What is normal is different to everybody. And I was quite alarmed by the amount that it looked like had come out on the hairbrush. So I actually counted it and I was like, oh, okay, it was a lot less than I thought it was. But yeah, I'm so acutely aware of that now that I it's hard to know if that's remained or if it's just that I'm aware of it, but it wasn't to the same level that it
Mhm.
was. Um, that's it, I think. I don't think there is really much else that's sort of hung about, thankfully. And obviously the food
How
noise and the hunger are back. So, well,
how
the
long
food
were
noise
you on
isn't
the
actually, to
Mounjaro?
be fair. Say that again,
How long
sorry.
were you on? How long were you
seven
on the
months.
Mounjaro? And Do you feel that you lost the weight too quickly, or were you
It's
satisfied
really
with that
hard to
rate?
say because I don't think it's something that we ultimately have that much control over. So there are some people on their journeys that I see on YouTube who are really frustrated that they don't feel they're losing weight quick enough. And then there are other people like I am that lost it quickly. And I think the body just loses what it's going to lose. I think we can do as much as we can, exercise, dieting. I think if you're doing everything in proportion, so eating a good amount of calories, but you're exercising, you don't really have control over what your body's going to do with the weight. So yeah, I'm not, my body just lost the weight at the rate that it has, but I've always been somebody that loses weight quickly. I mean, on 2 occasions I've lost 15 pounds in a week, not concurrently, but on different weight loss journeys. Equally, I only have to like inhale a little bit of dust and I gain like 10 pounds, so it levels itself out. It just is what it is. In a video I did a couple of weeks ago, I went back to, well, a month or so ago, I went back to weighing myself as I did previously, so multiple times a day. And within that day, my weight could fluctuate by up to 7 pounds. So I think there's not much point in getting hung up about it. It's possible that the rate I lost the weight impacted some of those side effects, but I've actually lost, how I approached this was much healthier than any other diet or exercise that I've ever approached in my life. So yeah, there's not much point in dwelling on that, I think.
Now, from the beginning of your journey to now, have your lab works improved, or were they never a problem?
And they weren't really ever a problem for me. So the only thing that I'm not sure of, and I have a test tomorrow, is that I had gestational diabetes with my youngest son, who's going to be 5 this year. And in the 5 years following having a baby, when you've had gestational diabetes, they should be testing your and I can never remember the name for the particular blood test that they do, but they should be doing this specific test annually. And I've only ever had it once. I had it when he was about 6 months old, and I followed up with my GP. And yeah, so I'm going in tomorrow, and a part of these blood tests that they'll do is to see that level. But other than that, apart from fatty liver, which was about 10 years ago that they discovered that, and at that point I was morbidly obese, and that has not been an issue since. So yeah, it seems to be doing okay, touch wood.
Now that you're not on the Mounjaro, is there anything that kind of like triggers you to eat wrong, or
Stress and boredom. I'm still very much uh emotionally responsive when it comes to food. So the minute that something happens, be it if I'm in a meeting and the meeting at work is a stressful meeting, I think of food. It's like a trigger. It's like someone switches on a light. So, and it doesn't have to be a negative emotion, even if it's something like getting promoted, or like my other half won an award recently for his job. Instantly it's like, oh, we'll go out and celebrate, and I'll think about what I'm going to eat. Oh well, we'll go out to a steakhouse and we'll have steak, or what might I get for pudding? Will I have a pudding? So those any emotion and food is I think probably always going to be intrinsically linked for me. So that's just something I have to be aware of, and not treating myself with food. So as I just said, that example, but I used to go to something called Slimming World, which I don't think is that, I
Mhm.
don't know that it's in America, but you probably have heard of it. And I used to go to Slimming World and I used to weigh, and then I would either console myself by going and getting food afterwards, or I would treat myself by going and getting food afterwards. So yeah, it's just being aware that there are other things I can do for myself than eat.
It's kind of funny how, we all seem to have food as our reward system, like, or, you know, had a good day, let's go celebrate, let's go eat, where now, at least for me, like, uh, I was feeling a little bored and a little depressed, and rather than saying, let's go out to eat, it's like, oh, let's go out and check out this park that we haven't checked out, in a long time, but
Yeah.
usually that's not the case.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just have to be very aware of that, because otherwise there would always be a reason to overeat.
Especially not on the Mounjaro. Have you found that increased a little bit more since you stopped?
Yeah, because the hunger's been there. So I think the reason that the emotional eating was manageable on Mounjaro is that I didn't
Mhm.
have the hunger. So I just wasn't thinking about food very much. But because the hunger's there, I'm thinking less and less, actually. The longer that I'm off the Mounjaro, and I'm working on issues around food, because I am working on it.
Mhm.
I've just stopped, but I was having like a talking therapy around food addiction and so on. So the longer that I use the methods that I've been taught, I think about food less, which makes the hunger more manageable, because I'm still hungry quite a lot of the time. Um, but yeah, for me, definitely, because I've got the hunger feelings back, it means that I have to work on the emotional eating a lot more than I did on the Mounjaro.
How's your energy level been since you've been off?
Yeah, initially when I stopped, my anxiety levels, and I've got health anxiety and OCD, and I've had those since I was a
Mhm.
child. So they, always my anxiety, I function at quite a high level of anxiety. But when I came off the medication, I noticed that my anxiety was very high and my energy levels were really, really low. Some days it was an effort to get out of bed. Um, that lasted up until a couple of weeks ago, actually, and suddenly I feel like I have a lot more energy. But I also think I suffer with the seasonal, I can't remember what the full word, seasonal something disorder. I think I probably have that. And now that the days are getting lighter, you're not driving to work in the dark, you're not driving home in the dark, I think that maybe naturally perks up my energy levels, because I haven't really changed anything in terms of diet and exercise. I still pushed through even when I was exhausted. So yeah, that's been quite a nice thing to have more energy, because I really was struggling with that.
So, I know when people start or are on GLP-1, you get a lot of criticism like, "Oh, you're cheating. This is the easy way out. You could do it without the medication." And now you're not on the medication. Are you getting any like comments like, "Are you crazy for getting off of it? Do you want to gain it all back?" Or
So I think people were like, you're going to gain the weight back. Are you not worried about the fact that, and it was almost like it was a foregone conclusion, like, you're not worried that you're going to get to the point that you're going to gain all this weight back, what are you going to do then? And then I think the other side of it was that perhaps there was an impression that I thought I was better than the medication, like that's why I stopped, because I'm above them, which I'm absolutely, not. I think this has been a life changer. Like all of the GLP ones, regardless of the one you use, it's an absolute life changer, and it's given me the life that I always thought I should have had in a lot of ways. But yeah, I think the main one being, you're going to regain the weight, because I think the statistics are like 80% of people will regain the weight. And my answer to that is really simple. If that does start to happen, I will use Mounjaro again, because it's not worth going back to where I was, because it wasn't long enough ago that I don't remember how miserable of an existence that was.
that's part of the beauty, I think, of this medication is that, you could always go back, and it's like now we kind of know that we're no longer obese, morbidly obese or overweight, whichever part of the spectrum that you're on. You never really have to go back.
Yeah, and I mean, this idea that you're cheating, I mean, it's just what, it it's not, because actually you could use this medication and not change anything and be equally as unhealthy, but maybe just a bit slimmer.
Mhm.
And the pretty much everybody, bar a couple of people who perhaps shouldn't have this medication, because I think the people I'm referring to, that I only know two people. I'm sure I know a lot more people, but I only know two people who have openly told me that they use Mounjaro, and one of them I know has an eating disorder, and the
We're
other
gonna
one
call
I'm
them
not so
EDs.
sure.
We're gonna call them EDs just for YouTube.
Oh, okay, sorry, Edie. So probably shouldn't have the medication. But this idea that it's cheating, I think, or it's the easy, it's not. And actually, even if it is, so what? Then that's fine. Don't use the medication. No one's forcing it upon someone else. I think, you know, even if it is, which I don't agree with,
Mhm.
then I would still use it anyway, because, or I would have still used it anyway, because I was stuck in a cycle that I couldn't break for 25 years using all of the traditional methods. It's not like I lack knowledge around how to lose weight safely. And actually, I've used those things whilst on Mounjaro, and it's proved to be really successful, because clearly the medication did something that nothing else that I was doing was able to do for me. So people are always going to have their opinions, aren't they? I
Right.
think you just have to. And I lost weight very quickly, traditionally, if you like, traditionally, a few times, and I had the same thing. Well, you've took it to an extreme, you've become obsessed about it, so you'll never win. I just
Right.
think, if
Well,
sorry, go on.
the obesity is a chronic disease, and it's not like you would go up to somebody that has chronic high blood pressure and say taking that high blood pressure pill is cheating.
Yeah,
You should change your diet and do everything. There's other things involved. There's genetics. There's a lot of other things.
yeah,
And as far as your losing weight, we've all lost a lot of weight. We've gained it back. The real trick of this is maintaining,
yeah,
because all those other diets just did not have a good maintenance plan or maintenance record. Uh, Now, like I said, for me, I just lowered my dose so that I got some of my appetite back because I didn't want to lose any more weight. And I plan on being on this long term. But, that's just me. Now, if for some reason I had to stop, either medically or financially, again, like I said before, I could always go back.
yeah, yeah.
We don't have to go back to being obese.
No, absolutely. And I think as a society, there is a really quite disgraceful way that people that are obese are treated, and the opinions of that, even medically. I've come across doctors who have said the words to me, just put the fork down and stop eating. And the doctor wouldn't say that to somebody that had asthma, just put the inhaler down and start breathing better. It just wouldn't happen. So I
Mhm.
think, the opinions on obesity, I think you're always going to have people that view obesity as an individual issue, or a greed issue. And then I think hopefully now the tide is changing and people are understanding this is a chronic condition, disease, whatever you want to call it, that people don't have control over, but it's actually killing more people than probably anything else. So yeah, I think if I did get to the point that I had to use it again, I would then remain on it, because I don't want to. I think you could become, I think you could yo-yo with it, and I
Mhm.
don't want to go back to yo-yoing. I did that all my life. So if it gets to the point that I think, right, I have to use the medication again, I'd have to find a happy medium with how I'm going to do that without stopping, unless I had to.
Now, if you went back, would it definitely be Mounjaro, or have you considered any of these oral medications? One that just came out, another one's about to come out.
Yeah. I think I probably would stick with Mounjaro. It took me long enough to make the decision to use the Mounjaro. I don't know how I'd feel about using a different medication. I quite not quite like, well, I do, I suppose. I quite like the pen. I think it's really simple to use. It's doesn't feel like, I know you are using it as an injection. It doesn't feel like that. I'm not great with taking medication. I know that I would forget. So a weekly jab from the pen is works quite well for me. So yeah, I would continue that. And I think with the things that are coming out now, like retatrutide and so on,
Mhm.
I don't know that I would need that if I was just looking to keep a maintenance dose. So I think I probably would stick with Mounjaro and see how that went.
I know for me, as soon as the orforglipron comes out and people actually use it for a little bit, I'm considering it because I'm in maintenance. I don't really care if it's quite as effective because I'm not
Yeah,
trying to lose weight. And sometimes, just, mentally, I don't know if it's true. I think taking a pill every day might make it a little evener, as far as, like I know the day before my shot, I'm definitely more hungry
yeah,
than I was after my shot.
yeah, yeah. And I found that the longer I took Mounjaro, the so I used to take it, and initially it felt like it worked straight away. Now, whether that was a placebo effect or not, I don't know. But and then I would go 9 days and I felt the same. And then the more that I took it, and even up the higher doses, it took longer to kick in. And then it would, by day 4 to 5, it felt like there was nothing going on. So I then started using it every 5 days. So yeah, I mean, I can just be quite rigid in my thinking, and I think because I got to the point where I was comfortable enough to use Mounjaro, I think I would just stick with that. And I'm not, as I said, I'm not great with taking tablets and things. So if I do get to the point I need to use it again, then yeah, it would be Mounjaro, and I'd just see how I go on with that.
Now that you're in maintenance, have you found that people are treating you differently than when you were obese?
Yeah, and not just so, which is shocking because actually that I don't bring anything different to the table than I did when I was 10 stone heavier. I still treat people the same. I still work equally as hard. Actually, probably when I was 10 stone heavier, because I felt so uncomfortable all the time and I walked into every room knowing and feeling that I was 10 stone heavier, I probably overcompensated. So I probably worked even
Mhm,
harder. I was probably, maybe even more helpful, because I was overcompensating because I wanted people to see beyond the fact that I was overweight. But now, yeah, I can feel it. I walk into a room, I feel like if I go into a legal meeting, I feel like I'm respected more out in public. I feel like people are politer. Um, and there's been definite examples of that. That's not just me being in my own head. There are definite
mhm,
examples of that. And even people I know who I would consider to be quite close to me, some of the things that they said in retrospect about their views and opinions of me when I was overweight are quite shocking. So, people say, well, we were seriously, seriously worried for your health. And I think, well, why didn't you say anything then? There's a nice way to approach things. You don't
mhm.
have to go in like a bull in a china shop and be rude. You can say, look, are you okay? I'm just worried. Is there anything I can do to help? And I know it's a sensitive subject, but also, you know, things, for example, I say a very good friend, somebody that I've been friends with for a while, um, said to me, I mean, you were getting to the point that you looked horrendous, and it was getting embarrassing. Like, we'd go out and and it's like it's acceptable to say that because I'm not that way anymore, but I'm still the same person. So, and again, things that I would never dream of saying to somebody. So I do think that there's a difference, and I get invited to a lot more things now than I did before. Whether that's because I used to say no to everything, I don't know, because I still say no to quite a lot of things now. But yeah, there is a definite thing, which is really sad actually, because just because 10 stone overweight Keely was still the same person. I still was, you know, as I said, nice and hardworking and helpful. So that's a shame that that happened.
I don't know how it is in the UK, but here in the US, like it seems like restaurants, fast food, grocery stores are all like gearing towards GLP-1. Like you here, Starbucks has a high protein, lower sugar menu. The same with like Chipotle, which is one of our Mexican carryouts, and so forth. Even McDonald's is trying to push that their burgers are so much protein. They're not changing their burgers. They're just pushing the fact that they have X amount of protein. But grocery
Yeah.
stores, like you're seeing this GLP-1 friendly stamp on it. Is it that way in the UK?
Um, so I think there's definitely been a rise in high protein foods. Suddenly, like you said, everything's become high protein, and it's not changed necessarily. It's just that they're advertising in a way to meet a different criteria now. In terms of GLP-1 medications, now people may disagree with me completely on this. I still think we're quite a big nation of secret jabbers. I still think there's
Hmm.
quite a stigma around using a GLP-1 medication. And as I said, I'm sure that I know lots of people that are using them that are just not prepared, and that's fine, like, whatever. But yeah, I still think we're quite a big nation of secret jabbers. But definitely the protein thing, yeah, everything's protein now. The protein water and just madness. So yeah.
Now we're going to go into a section of my papers here. It's kind of like a game where we're going to play whether it was worth it or not. I'm going to rattle off some stuff and you can
Okay.
say whether it's worth it. And if you want to say something about it, you can. The nausea from the medication.
So I never really got nausea from the medication. That wasn't very rarely. So yeah.
Okay. This is a big one. Paying out of pocket.
I mean, I'd say worth it because I never, even though I did get accepted on the NHS, I never got to the point of getting the medication from the NHS. So I always knew I was going to have to pay for it privately, and that was a decision that I made straight away. So definitely worth it.
Smaller portions, probably forever.
Oh, that's a really hard one. Worth it because yeah, worth it. But I love
Social
food,
eating.
so
Okay. Go ahead.
no, I just love food. So like sometimes I just want to really, really indulge. But yeah, definitely worth it.
Social eating challenges.
So when I was using the Mounjaro, worth it. I think I went out for a handful of meals when I was using Mounjaro, so worth it. Now I would say worth it, but with the caveat that I'm very, very aware when I go out to eat now of reining myself in. So I don't always enjoy it as much because I'm very conscious that, I mean, there are occasions when I'll go like birthdays, for example, then I just be like, right, I'm going to eat what I eat and that's fine. But other times
Hmm.
when it's not a necessary meal out, for example, and I'm more conscious of what I eat, so it's not that enjoyable.
Prioritizing protein.
Worth it. Yeah, I definitely regret having not done that sooner.
Drinking more water.
Worth it. Yeah.
Not finishing your restaurant meals.
Worth it, but also I'm a bit tight, so I think of like the money that, like, if I don't eat the rest of that steak, for example. And also I'm a foodie, so I want to eat it. But yeah, ultimately worth it.
Losing interest in some of the junk food.
Oh, definitely worth it. Even if someone had said to me that the overriding feature of Mounjaro is that you lose the interest in that sort of food, that I would have taken it for that alone.
Having your favorite meal and getting full halfway through it.
Oh, it is worth it, but at the same time, it's sad.
Having to remind yourself to eat.
So yeah, on Mounjaro, again, I would say worth it, but I think I think there's a false sense there as well. I think you can quite easily go. When I first started taking Mounjaro, I could go 4 days and not have to eat because I didn't have that compulsion. But I think if you slip into that very quickly, you will pay the price for it. So um, it is worth it if you've got control over it. Otherwise, maybe not.
Eating because you should, not because you're hungry.
Worth it 1,000,000,000%.
Protein shakes becoming a thing.
Yeah, worth it. Although they all start to taste really similar. So although I am using a new one now that doesn't, but yeah, worth it.
Eating boring but smart meals.
Worth it.
Realizing your portions used to be way too aggressive.
Oh yeah, definitely worth it. I mean, I used to go to we'd go to a restaurant and I'd eat my food, I'd finish what was on Matt's plate, then I'd order like a starter, dessert, bread for the table. And now I just stick to a main meal. And I know I probably, well, on the Mounjaro, I wouldn't eat half of that. Now I'm capable of eating the full meal. I just don't. So definitely worth it.
No skin issues.
Actually, funnily enough, I skin issues have never been a massive thing for me. I was quite lucky, so I didn't suffer with like acne or anything. But for a period after I stopped the Mounjaro, my skin on my body got not bad, but I noticed that it was um worse than it had ever been, but that's gone now, so I don't know what that was. But yeah, so that's not really something I've ever struggled with.
Muscle loss worries.
Again, I think when we talked earlier about what I would have done differently, focusing on muscle, focusing on, weights and so on, I definitely would have done earlier. In that respect, I would say that it's not worth it if you're not going to ever focus on that.
Feeling cold easier.
Worth it. Just get a big
Hair
jacket.
hair thinning.
Oh, that's a really difficult one because I feel, yeah, when it was peak, I would have said not worth it because I really, really struggled with it. And some people put, oh, this is a pathetic thing to say, you've lost all this weight, but you're worried about your hair. But actually, everybody has different things. And for me, that was a really big
Mhm.
one. So that's a really difficult one. I don't, yeah, I'm going to say worth it. But it's really difficult. That was really difficult.
Needing new clothes more often.
Oh yeah, 100% worth it.
Not recognizing yourself in the mirror.
Yeah, that's a really weird. That's a strange one because even though when I was really overweight, I felt really overweight and I knew I was and I was uncomfortable. Sometimes I would look in the mirror and I didn't like what I was seeing back wasn't reality. So I sometimes felt a lot thinner than I was. And the mirror's never been a conscious one for me. So it's not been like, I mean, I've known that I've lost weight, but I haven't looked in the mirror and necessarily always felt much different to when I was really overweight, which is probably a bit of an odd response. So, yeah, that's not really something that I've experienced that much, I guess.
People commenting on your body.
I mean, it's nice to get a cheeky compliment, don't get me wrong. Like, it's nice when people go, you look fantastic. But I also think whether you're overweight or when you've lost a lot of weight, it seems to give people carte blanche to say what they like. So whether that's something negative about how you looked previously or something inappropriate about how you looked, I've had that quite a lot. So, I mean, it wouldn't stop. Yeah, it's worth it because it wouldn't stop me from doing it. But I think sometimes I'm quite shocked by how comfortable people feel to say things like there's no filter there.
People judging you for the way that you lost the weight on a GLP-1.
Oh, worth it because I, with all the will in the world, I just couldn't care less if people think, well, you've cheated. And if I have, I'm still much happier and healthier than I was when I wasn't cheating.
Having to explain GLP-1s so many times.
Yeah, I don't really mind that because what at first what I wasn't like, people might ask me about it and I wouldn't, I'd be able to sort of give very basic overview of what it is. But the longer this journey's gone on and the longer that the YouTube journey's gone on, I've come to understand so much more about, not just Mounjaro, but GLP-1 medication and hormones and all of those things. So, I mean, I find it quite interesting. And I think what's brilliant about, not to give medical advice, obviously, I would never ever do that. But I think what's brilliant about observing other people's journeys on YouTube is that everybody brings something different to it and everybody brings, even recent news or up to date research. Everyone brings their bit and it's a lot easier to listen to and learn from than maybe some of the more statistically based and scientific based stuff.
Not eating your favorite comfort food as often.
Worth it, but it's definitely, I do miss lots of foods.
Realizing how much food took up mental space in your head.
Yeah, worth it, definitely. But um, I mean, I think food probably occupied 90% of my thoughts.
Fearing that stopping the medication isn't going to work.
Yeah, I mean, worth it. Yeah.
Tracking all your proteins and nutritions.
So I'm not religious with tracking them. I have an awareness. I think anytime that I have tracked everything, I've never been able to sustain it. So I've just got quite a flexible approach to it now. Some days I do track, some days I don't. But I've been dieting long enough that I sort of understand the ratio of what is in my meals. I'm not saying like down to the gram or the calorie, but I have an awareness of what is going to give me high protein and what is high calorie or low calorie. So yeah, I just take a flexible approach to it, because otherwise I know I won't be able to sustain it.
Now let's talk a little bit about your channel and how it's shifted now that you're not on the Mounjaro, and your subscribers' reactions to that.
Yeah, I mean, my subscriber base is really, really, they're a cool, really cool bunch of people. They're really interactive as well, so they're really interested and they're really helpful. Like, they've all got a lot to bring. Like, lots of people are still on their Mounjaro journeys, and it's sort of a spectrum. So I've got lots of people who aren't on a GLP-1 medication but are on a lifestyle change and offer really helpful advice. Other people in their Mounjaro or GLP-1 journey, and then other people who are thinking about stopping or who have stopped. So the whole spectrum. But people have been really, really helpful. Actually, the weeks that I've really struggled, I've had some really sound support and advice, and that's really invaluable, and I can't thank them enough for that. But yeah, I've had a really, really lovely response. I mean, look, when I started my channel, I'd wanted to do a YouTube channel for a long, long time. It's the inner star in me, and I finally decided to start the YouTube channel last year. And in all honesty, and I know it's a cliche thing to say, I just thought I might get a few subscribers and it probably won't go on very long. That's what I was thinking would happen. But yeah, I've had a really, really lovely response, and people have been really receptive to the stopping Mounjaro. I think people are quite interested in that, and seeing somebody sustain that, which is quite nice.
Now, on your Mounjaro journey the whole time, was there one particular thing that surprised you the most?
I think one of the standout things that surprised me the most was when I had so when I first started sort of broadcasting, if you like, sort of being open about the fact, because initially I
Mhm,
was a secret jabber, and then when I was more open about it, I got some. So I haven't had Facebook for years, and then I went back on Facebook, and within a day of having Facebook, I'd been messaged by a couple of people that I knew who were really, really critical of my decision to broadcast that I was using, and felt quite angry that I was doing that. Not angry that I was using the medication, angry
mhm.
that I was publicizing it. And I instantly just deleted my Facebook. I was like, I'm not dealing with this. And then I sort of thought about it, and I thought, do you know what? That those people, both of them, who I didn't really speak too much before, but I don't speak too much now. They both knew how desperately I struggled with my weight and how impactful and difficult that was in my life, but they never offered any. And that's fine, they don't have to. But then to come when they can see that I'm changing things, to come at it with from that angle surprised me. And I think the general, having been so significantly overweight and now being in a very, very healthy way, the responses from people that we talked about earlier, I think that's been the biggest surprise to me, because I know what it's like to be treated negatively for being overweight. And there were times, lots of times, when I was in public and I was called names, and not very nice things would happen, sitting in chairs and being asked to move because that chair might not be able to take your weight, and those, and not, and they weren't saying that negatively, but that was a concern, and that was still really embarrassing. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think for me the biggest thing is observing that those changes, how people will treat you differently because of how much you weigh, which isn't isn't nice either way. It's because I know what it's like to be that overweight, and I'm sad that people would treat somebody differently or feel that it's okay to treat somebody badly because they weigh more than is healthy to weigh.
Mhm. Do you think the stigma of the medications, or even just the stigma of being overweight or obese, is gonna ever go away?
I think it I think it will maybe become better. I don't think it will ever fully go away. I think people have made a decision that people who, I think there are people still who believe that being overweight is a personal choice and it's come down to greed and laziness. And they're things I felt about myself, by the way, all the time I was overweight.
Mhm.
They were things I hated about myself, that I thought I was greedy and lazy, and why couldn't I just not overeat? Like, I felt those things internally. And I do think that there's a large proportion of people that feel those things and think those things about people and feel like it's okay to broadcast that because that's just a fine thing to say. I think it's getting better, and I think it will get better, but I still think it's always going to be there. And I think that's really, really, really unfair. I, you know, I People are struggling, and there'll be lots of reasons why people are overweight, albeit trauma, a genetic issue, whatever it is, and that really isn't anybody else's to comment on. Live in your lane, and if you've got nothing nice to say, just don't say anything. But yeah, I think it will get better, but I don't think it will ever fully go away.
It's kind of funny because, before this interview, I'm working on one of my videos, and it's basically 25, 30 years in the future, and somebody's overweight, and the most common reaction in that time is, well, why aren't you treating it with a GLP-1?
Yeah, yeah, I think I can imagine that happening. I think because I think it's not just the benefit to the individual, and obviously that's how the world works. It's not necessarily about the benefit to the individual, it's a societal benefit. And even if you look at the cost alone, I mean, in the NHS, obesity costs the NHS about £11 billion a year.
Mhm.
There's no doubt that GLP-1 medications are going to start massively reducing those bills and all of the other health issues that go alongside it. So I think societally it will be pushed out. And probably, yeah, you're right, in that many years there won't be secret jabbers anymore because it will just be so widely accepted. And hopefully, this is the start of obesity
Mhm.
not being, but I do think one of the things that I do think is that, and actually when we talked earlier about what I wish I'd have done at the start of my journey or my regrets, is the GLP-1 isn't necessarily going to fix your issues, and I've definitely noticed that. And therefore, if you have issues alongside that, emotional issues or trauma, which I have had, it's important to work on those things alongside it.
Absolutely. So I tend to wrap these up, as you probably remember, with what would your best advice be to somebody who's considering starting a GLP-1 medication?
If it's the right thing for you to do, get all of the advice, educate yourself. I think it's probably the same that I said before, Laurie. Educate yourself on it, understand what it is that you're taking, and make an informed choice, and get all of the help you can. Speak to the And I think that's probably another thing. I didn't get any advice really or help beyond the very, very initial stages. I sort of then went it alone, and actually use that advice, use those companies or your doctor, and don't sit on questions, go out and find the answers to them. But don't worry about what other people say. People are always going to be negative. You will never ever please anybody, and as my nan has always said, if you try and please everyone, you'll annoy everyone in the process, and the one that will end up unhappy is you. So just do what's best for you.
I want to thank you for giving us some time today. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully, in another 10 months, we could do a re-interview and see how the non-Mounjaro journey is going.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Laurie.
All right, with that, I'm going to call this a wrap.